Welcome everybody to today's virtual meetup. Christy with LUNGevity here. So happy to have an expert with us today. Today we have Marissa Buchanan. Marissa is the COO with Savor Health, and we're so happy to have her with us to provide nutrition information and answer those burning questions that we've had, y'all. Marissa is highly trained. She received her bachelor's degree from Duke, a master's in science from New York University, and is certified in oncology nutrition. Marissa has also served over 10 years at Sloan Kettering and works in clinical research as well as nutritional counseling. Marissa, we are so happy to have you with us today. Welcome to our meetup.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here today. Thanks for the intro, Christy. I am, as Christy said, I'm an oncology credentialed registered dietitian, and the team at Savor Health has many of these dietitians on our team, and we're constantly trying to find the best way to help patients throughout their cancer journey, because nutrition can be incredibly complicated, a lot of misinformation out there. So just trying to share evidence-based nutrition information with all of you. And today, I was thinking I could get started and just give you a little bit of a few tips that I find to be the most important things to remember during and after cancer treatment for lung cancer patients, but I want to leave most of the time for your questions. I know, as I said, there's a lot of myths out there that you might want to talk about, and I want to leave plenty of time for that. So really the main thing I wanted to share as the most important tip for cancer survivors is the importance of following an anti-inflammatory diet. And what that means can be confusing. Some people don't know what that means. Really, it's including, colorful fruits and vegetables in the diet, variety being key. The more color, the better. Of course, whole grains, legumes, all those plant-based foods have an incredible amount of antioxidants that are going to be really helpful for both your health during your cancer treatment and afterward. Other anti-inflammatory foods to focus on are the healthy fats. So omega-3 fatty acids, especially those found in salmon and walnuts and flaxseed. Also nuts, olive oil, things like that are going to be very anti-inflammatory for the body. And then the foods to limit are those pro-inflammatory foods. So the things like processed meats, refined sugars, white flour, fried foods. Of course, it's okay to have those foods. Sometimes it's what we do most of the time that matters most. So this kind of dietary pattern that I'm calling anti-inflammatory is the same thing that's going to help keep your immune system strong. So it's going to help keep you from getting sick, help you get you through your treatment, and help you recover a little bit faster. So that's kind of my, the gold standard of nutritionally what we want to do. But I know there's so many questions out there. So I want to just stop there and hear what you've been wondering about, what questions you have, and I'm happy to talk about those, and also can always send over additional information after this meeting if there's anything that I don't have the answer to.
Thank you, Marissa. That was a great intro to nutrition and a start for us. Guys, be sure and either raise your hand or post any questions for Marissa in the chat. Marissa, one of the, I guess one of the big topics that comes up in oncology is sugar. And is sugar an enemy? Do we limit sugar? Is some sugar okay? Also alcohol. Can you talk to us a little bit about those things?
Yeah, I talk about sugar all the time. It's definitely the number one question that I get from cancer patients. So it's a myth that sugar feeds cancer. That is, we know, is a myth. Basically, our bodies need sugar to function. So our bodies turn almost anything we eat into sugar so that our cells can function the preferred source of energy for the body is glucose. But we do know that diets that are very high in sugar, especially refined sugar, does raise the blood sugar levels, raises the insulin levels, and creates kind of a pro-inflammatory state in the body. So high sugar foods, are eaten in excess over time are going to create a pro-inflammatory state in the body, which we know can be linked to greater risk for cancer. But sugar alone does not promote cancer. Consuming small amounts of sugar is absolutely fine as a part of an overall healthful diet. I think the things that we can limit are limit the added sugars and limit the sugar sweetened beverages. That's what I recommend to do. It is absolutely okay to eat sugar in the form of fruits and vegetables. It comes prepackaged with fiber, with water, with antioxidants and nutrients. These are all, good things to have in the diet. If you have diabetes or have had, pre-diabetes or are prone to high blood sugar, I recommend pairing higher carbohydrate foods with something that has protein or fat or fiber, so if you're eating a banana, it's great to have a handful of almonds with it. That's kind of going to slow the way your body's blood sugar goes up. So that's one tip that you can try, but you absolutely don't need to eliminate all sugar from your diet. I hope that answers that question.
Well, I think we should celebrate that. I think that's a good response.
Agreed. And
healthy sugars through fruits and
yeah, and it's important to especially when you're in active cancer treatment, to maintain your weight. We don't want to see a lot of weight loss, and carbohydrate foods are an important component of the diet. It's very difficult to maintain your weight without including carbohydrate foods. But when you're able to choose, the higher fiber, the less processed, and the fruits and vegetables as your main carbohydrates. So then I see, what about alcohol? I know that's a hot topic as well. And you brought that up, Christy, too. Alcohol is one that I often do defer to the physician because it is dependent on what treatments you're on. I will say alcohol in general makes it more difficult to stay adequately hydrated. Typically, most patients, it's okay to have, alcohol in moderation, the same amount that is, appropriate for people who don't have cancer, which is, 1 drink a day for women, 2 drinks a day for men, and a drink being, 5-ounce glass of wine. I know sometimes my pour can be a little more ambitious than that 5-ounce glass. So knowing the serving size that we're talking about when we talk about alcohol is important. But like I said, for almost every treatment regimen and for survivors, that moderate amount of alcohols will be fine. And there also is a lot of research that shows that the resveratrol in red wine, which is an antioxidant, actually can kind of help in terms of cancer prevention and prevention of recurrence. So small amounts of alcohol actually might be a good thing. I'm not saying to start drinking if you don't drink, but if you do, that is an upside of red wine. And, if you're ever not sure about alcohol, just definitely check with your doctor or nurse based on your specific treatment regimen, because there's kind of not a one size fits all answer there.
Great information, Marissa. Yeah. I see that Lou has his hand up. Lou, did you have a question for Marissa?
Yes, I do. Hi, Marissa. Thanks for being here today.
Of course.
I live next door to a vegan. And if you've ever done that, you know that eventually you're going to be talking about diet. But he sent me a bunch of YouTube videos from a Dr. Greger who he's a proponent of being vegan. And he cited all these studies about lower cancer recurrence, lower cancer rates. And I've kind of looked at that. And although I do like to fire up my smoker, because I make a pretty mean brisket, and some other things. But I decided, okay, I'm going to get healthier. So I contacted my oncologist and I said, look, I can't go vegan. I mean, I need a little bit of chocolate ice cream every night, or else when the full moon comes, I'm going to go out and bite people on the neck. So I said, what about the Mediterranean diet? I said, you know, as an oncologist, do you see any difference in recurrence? Because even our website, LUNGevity, has a couple of statements about plant-based diets, lower numbers of recurrence. Personally, I can't find any of these studies that are really double-blind and peer-reviewed and all of that. So what are your thoughts on that particular diet, with the understanding that instead of blueberries at night, Lou's going to have chocolate ice cream?
It's a great question. And like your neighbor said, there is research around, you know, plant-based diets and cancer, you know, incidence and recurrence and all of that. There's probably, for every study you find about a vegetarian or vegan diet, you're going to be able to find the same, or using a Mediterranean diet, which is something that I recommend all the time as well. I think what we're seeing when we're looking at a plant-based diet is the power of including, you know, there's a lot of overlap actually between a plant-based vegetarian or vegan diet and the Mediterranean diet. There's lots of fruits and vegetables. There's lots of healthy fats, olive oil, nuts, you know, seeds, etc. So those things are common between the two, and in my opinion, those are the cornerstones of a diet that matter most. And whether you're, you know, excluding meat or you're including fish or you're, you know, all of that, those diets also share the fact that they exclude, you know, or limit small amounts of red meat and processed meat. And I think those are things we know are not a good idea in terms of cancer recurrence and in terms of overall health. So there's a lot of overlap between those two diets, and those are the important features of those two diets. And I think what is most important in terms of your health is choosing the diet that you're going to be able to stick to and the diet that works for your lifestyle. And so if you know that, you know, cutting out meat is not going to work for your lifestyle, I don't think there's a reason you need to go vegan. I think you can try to include more plants in your diet, and kind of have the meat as the side dish rather than the covering the whole plate. I think that's a reasonable goal. But like you said, the research is just as strong for the Mediterranean diet, which is kind of what I recommend most to my patients as well.
Okay, and my oncologist, by the way, he had an interesting answer. And he said, Lou, there are plenty of studies. He says, I just look at each individual case. And he says, frankly, a healthier diet can never hurt you when you're on the journey that you're on. So, you know, he couldn't say, oh yeah, you know, 20% less of my patients, you know, don't have recurrence. You know, it's kind of hard to find that kind of data somewhere yet.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks a lot, because yeah, I could live with chicken and fish and the occasional ribs, you know, as opposed to ribs every week. Okay, thanks.
No problem. Great question.
Great question, Lou. Thanks for bringing that up. I see we've got questions in the chat, and we want to be most respectful of our time with you, Marissa. So let's get to those. Talk with us about dairy and what we need to know about dairy.
Yep. That's a question we get a lot. You know, I strongly believe you don't need to cut dairy out from your diet entirely. I think some people, if you're sensitive to it, of course, you may want to kind of try some dairy alternatives instead. But there really isn't consistent research that says that dairy contributes to cancer recurrence or cancer, you know, causing cancer in any way. That being said, There are certain dairy foods that I think are better than others. One of those that I always recommend is yogurt. I think we know the importance of the gut microbiome. You might have heard that word, or the gut flora. It's basically that healthy bacteria that lives in your gut that we're learning more and more has a lot of impact on your overall health, on your immune system, on things like cancer and other chronic diseases. And we want to keep that environment, that bacterial environment, happy and healthy. And the way we do that is by giving it probiotic foods like yogurt, and then also by giving it lots of fiber, which is kind of known as a prebiotic. So those are the things you want to focus on to keep the gut flora healthy. The types of dairy foods that I think people sometimes want to limit is the ones that are really high in sodium and high in saturated fat, like cheese. I love cheese, but I think that's one that you can potentially cut back on if you so choose. But again, the research is not consistent on cutting out dairy from your diet being helpful for cancer prevention.
That's good. That's good information, making sure that our dairy's not too high in fat and it's good dairy.
So it was my question about
Another question.
the inflammation.
Go ahead, Dana.
So sorry, of the dairy, you were saying an anti-inflammatory diet. I've read that sometimes you shouldn't have dairy if it's because it's considered an inflammatory food. So I just wanted to add that in before you moved on, since it was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's one I get a lot. And again, looking at the overall body of research, it's not consistent enough to say that it needs to be avoided. Similarly, like I said about, diets high in yogurt have been shown actually to, have lower inflammatory kind of inflammatory markers in the body. So there's some conflicting evidence there. And so that one, I can't give a clear, yes or no. I think some people find they feel better when they aren't eating dairy. Some people, it's a really important protein source for them. So I think it's kind of an individualized answer there.
I hope that answered your question, Dana. Thank you. Talk with us about vitamins and supplements.
Yep.
Are they to complement one's diet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another great question. Supplements are kind of something that I get asked about all the time. Now, I think the answer for this one, if, do I need supplements? Again, it's annoying. I know it's an annoying dietitian thing that we all say, but it depends to some extent. There are certain people that do need very specific supplements during or after their cancer treatment. I'll say, after any GI related surgeries, there are certain supplements that you might need if you're not absorbing certain nutrients. Vitamin B12, if you're following a vegan diet, like we spoke about, that's something that only comes from animal-based foods. So you will need a B12 supplement if you are following a vegan diet or a mostly vegan diet. If for some reason you're unable to eat a healthy, varied diet, your appetite is poor, you're having side effects or something like that, that's not allowing you to eat the foods that contain those natural vitamins and minerals, you may need some supplements there as well. I think there's no harm in taking a multivitamin as kind of a backup for the diet if you aren't able to, get everything in your diet. The one supplement I do recommend, and I wonder if maybe some of your oncologists have recommended this for you as well, is a vitamin D supplement, since it's so critical for your immune function and for your bone health, especially after cancer treatment. And again, I would say there's no harm in taking a vitamin D supplement. I think a lot of us are deficient and don't know it. So that's one that I think is valuable, especially this kind of year. If you're like me, I'm in Chicago, not getting a whole lot of natural vitamin D. So that's one that I do tend to recommend. For supplements beyond a multivitamin, vitamin D, some of those supplements that maybe your doctor has recommended for you, I generally say it's not a good idea to kind of have a handful of supplements every day. They're not regulated by the FDA. Some of them might actually interfere with your medications or things that your treatment regimen. So you want to be cautious and you want to be skeptical about supplements in general, and check with your doctor before starting anything new.
Great point. Make sure you circle back with your physician and for that input and guidance as well. This is great information, Marissa. We've got some really good comments in the chat. Buddy has his hand up. I'd like to quickly, Buddy, if you have a question, go ahead and ask Marissa. I want to make sure that we get to the great questions that are posed in the chat. This may be a lightning round. Go ahead, Buddy.
And I'm happy also to, I can send information afterward as well and share it if we run out of time. But I do want to make sure every question gets answered.
Great. I'd also like for you to talk with us about INA.
Oh, yes, I will absolutely share that information too. So
We'll get to that. Mr. Cutler.
Thank you. Thank you, Marissa. Good, valuable information. Wanted to ask about, you've talked about probiotics and how they're good for the microbiome, etc. What about probiotic supplements? What are your thoughts on that? And is one better than another? I know there are a million of them out there.
yeah, there are lots of options out there. And unfortunately, there's the kind of the research and the studies using probiotics in cancer patients specifically is still kind of in the early stages, and there's not a ton of clear evidence that whether or not we should be taking probiotics. So that's why I generally lean towards recommending foods that we know support the healthy gut flora. So, the prebiotics, which are fiber containing foods, and then the probiotics, which are, fermented foods, sauerkraut, yogurt, which has the live active cultures. So those are the foods I typically recommend. Now, I do think sometimes a probiotic can be useful, potentially after surgery, I think, or if you're on antibiotics for an extended period of time. A probiotic supplement can be useful kind of to restore that health that might have been disrupted from that surgery or the treatment that you were on. But I, again, kind of caution you to check with your doctor first. Try to choose a brand that has some oversight and testing, kind of the more standard brands I would actually choose, and not anything that's too out there, if that makes sense. Just when we're messing with what's going into our gut and that bacterial environment, we want to be careful not to do anything extreme, because your body actually does a really good job of kind of maintaining that health on its own. So I'm sorry that wasn't a clear yes or no answer. Unfortunately, that's the way it is with a lot of nutrition questions. In general, if you're regular, and you know what I mean by that, if you are not having a lot of GI upset or irritable bowel type symptoms, I don't think you need a probiotic added to your regimen.
Thank you.
More good information. Not all products are created equally.
Very true.
Good point. There's a question about gaining weight. Let me scroll back to it. What do you recommend for those who struggle to keep weight on? Any good tips?
Yeah, definitely tons of good tips. Very common problem, especially during treatment when you're dealing with side effects. So I think the best tip that I would always give patients when I was still at the hospital would be to eat based on the clock rather than your hunger, since your hunger isn't always going to tell you that you need to eat. Especially if you're having trouble keeping on weight, that it's probably a sign that you're your appetite is not that vigorous right now, which can happen pretty frequently. So setting a timer for every, maybe every 2 hours, eating something small rather than just focusing on 3 meals, I think that can be really helpful, because those snacks can bring a good amount of nutrition into your diet. And I think something else, in addition to just frequency of eating, it's also what you're choosing. So you want to get the most bang for your buck. So fats are going to provide the most calories for the smallest quantity. So it's really easy if you're, maybe you're having some oatmeal for breakfast. Let's think of a way that we can kind of optimize that oatmeal. So if we add a tablespoon of nut butter or some chopped walnuts or something like that, that's going to easily add 120 calories or something like that to that meal, and that's going to help with that weight maintenance. So that's just one tip. There's a lot of different things you can do, but focusing on those kind of the condiments and the things that you can add onto foods to get the most bang for your buck. I saw that your question mentions like Ensure and things like that. Those can be beneficial. I prefer to make my own smoothies personally, just because they're going to be less processed. I know that's not always feasible, but if you're making a smoothie, you can add whole milk Greek yogurt, or you can add avocado or peanut butter. Any of those things are going to add a ton of calories. You're going to get to the same amount of calories as an Ensure bottle, but without all that added sugar and kind of those processed artificial ingredients. So if you're able to, definitely experiment with smoothies between meals.
Thank you, Marissa. Linda had a great question about using spices and herbs for anti-inflammatory properties, and it looks like she makes her own cocktail or concoction there.
Ooh,
Any thoughts on that?
I love it. I love it. I mean, there's so much. I see that you're using turmeric and garlic and cinnamon and ginger. Those particular herbs are ones that come up all the time as being very anti-inflammatory in the body. And there is research into all of those that support that. I think it's great to integrate herbs and spices into your diet as much as you can. I see that you make kind of a tea using them. That's a great idea and a great way to get them into the diet. You can also just kind of add them to foods you're doing. I see you, and you clearly know your stuff here, because she's adding black pepper as well, which helps make turmeric specifically more bioavailable to the body. So turmeric has curcumin is the active compound in turmeric that's so powerful, and adding some black pepper when you're using turmeric can help make that more effective. So love this idea. I think there's absolutely no drawback into using more herbs and spices. Plus it makes your food taste more delicious and keeps things interesting.
Good to know, and good job, Linda. You're on the right track, most definitely. One question on intermittent fasting, if you could address that, and then maybe we'll wrap up our time with you telling us about Ina.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, intermittent fasting is a hot area right now. There's a lot of new studies coming out using intermittent fasting, and there's some pros and cons here. So pros for intermittent fasting is it does show that giving your body kind of some periods of metabolic rest, so some breaks between your meals, can improve blood sugar control and can lower inflammatory markers. One of the problems with all the research coming out in fasting is there's a lot of different types of fasting, and some are going to have a short period of fasting where you just kind of have an extended overnight fast. So maybe you don't eat between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's a 12-hour fast. I think a lot of us do that anyway, just kind of after dinner and before our breakfast in the morning. And then there's other kind of fasting variations where maybe you fast for 24 hours, 2 days a week or something like that. That's going to be, very different. So it's troublesome when we're looking at the research to align all these different versions of fasting. But in general, for patients that are going through cancer treatment, or if they're survivors, I think that doing a fast that's longer than 12 to 14 hours overnight is not a good idea. I think it's going to lead to kind of an eat whatever I want during the non-fasting periods point of view, which can lead us to eat unhealthier foods or eat more than we need. I think it's not necessarily sustainable, and it ignores some of your body's cues in terms of, I'm hungry right now, I need to eat. I think we need to listen to those cues, especially after treatment, when your body is recovering from something pretty important. I think it can make exercise harder too. If you're not eating all morning until lunch, maybe you aren't going to have that energy for a great long walk, or, doing some exercise, which are things that we know are valuable for our health. And also a lot of the evidence right now is still in animals and not in a ton of human trials using these fasting diets are out there. So I think it's just too early to make any kind of vast statements about fasting, given all the potential risks associated with it. So, if it's something you want to try, I would say do kind of that extended overnight fast. So maybe you want to try 12 to 14 hours. You don't eat anything between 6 p.m. at night to 8 a.m. the next morning would kind of be the longest stretch that I typically recommend.
So shorter interval fasts,
Yeah, I
listen to
think
your body and communicate with your
exactly.
provider.
Mhm. Yeah. And then I know Christy wanted me to tell you guys a bit about INA. Some of you may have signed up with INA through the LUNGevity website, and you can definitely do that. I'll tell you guys the website to go to. It's adlungev.savorhealth.com. I can put it here in the chat, but I'm sure you can also find it on LUNGevity's website, because I know they have it there. I just popped that into the chat for anyone that's interested. Basically, INA is an intelligent nutrition assistant. So it's a text-based tool that you can access any time of the day to ask questions like this. And we have all evidence-based information that was designed and built by dietitians on our team that are all credentialed in oncology. So INA can help with side effect management, with recipes, with those kind of hot topics in nutrition, myths. If there's something you're just not sure about, you can ask INA anytime. It looks like, I see Ellen said she tried to sign up and couldn't access the service. I'm sorry about that. If you have any issues signing up, you can email help@savorhealth.com for any questions or issues. But when you sign up, when you enter your phone number, you should get a text message right away from INA that has more information. And then from that point forward, you can text her anytime. So it's all through your text messages, no app that you need to download. I know downloading apps can be annoying, and we're all kind of overwhelmed by the apps that are out there. So if you're interested, sign up with INA, ask questions. If INA, the chatbot, is ever unsure of an answer, we have dietitians behind the scene that are there, kind of checking what the questions are coming in. So there is a human behind the curtain that, me or one of my teammates are always there to kind of help with those questions. So that was the quick.
Marissa, I signed up for INA, months ago last year, and the interaction was fantastic. And what's great about it is you can pose a question of a certain topic. So some of these questions that have been asked today that we've explored briefly, if you want to learn a little more or have some dialogue, go to INA, type it in, and you'll get all kinds of information. You can also adjust the settings on INA. Maybe you want to hear from INA daily, maybe you don't. Maybe you want a touch base, a check-in once a week for nutritional health. Lots of options, and you can control those settings and manage your preferences. Marissa, thank you so much for your time today and for being with us. I knew that there were lots of good questions, and I felt like there would be some really good engagement today, and lots of good questions. We appreciate you and your expertise. I know you've got a hard stop. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Of course, thank you. And these were truly amazing questions. I know we didn't get to every single one. Christy, if you want to send me those, I'd be happy to kind of write up the answer that I would have given if we had more time today, and share those with the group. But thanks
Will
again. It was a
do.
great discussion and always great to be with Longevity. Happy to.
I'll email you a little later. Thanks, Marissa. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.